These are the known facts.
On the 24th of September 1905, a young woman was found dead in Merstham Tunnel, Surrey, beside the London to Brighton railway line. She was Mary Sophia Money, aged about 21. The official inquest later recorded an open verdict, found dead, but evidence did not show whether she fell or was pushed. Mary lived in Battersea, in staff accommodation provided by Messrs. Ellis and Sons, a dairy business where she worked in the office. Reports described her as a superior employee, a bookkeeper and assistant, known for accurate accounts, respectable conduct, and financial independence. Mary's brother was Robert Henry Money, a dairy farmer and builder living at Kingston Hill. His later life would cast a long shadow over 1905. On Sunday evening, the 24th of September, Mary left the Lavender Hill Dairy at about 7 o'clock, telling her colleague and roommate Emma Hone she was going for a short walk. Witnesses described her outfit clearly: a grey voile dress, a black feather boa, and a black hat. Distinctive details later repeated during the investigation. Around 7:10 p.m., she entered a confectioner's shop near Clapham Junction, run by Miss Golding, bought chocolates, and said she was going to Victoria. That remark about Victoria contradicted her earlier message to Emma Hone about only taking a short walk, creating an early inconsistency in the timeline. At about 7:20 p.m., ticket collector Charles Yelling, who knew her by sight, saw Mary on the platform at Clapham Junction. After that, there is a gap of more than 2 hours. Where Mary went between Clapham Junction and her later train remains unknown. Investigators later concluded she did not travel to Victoria. Evidence instead placed her on the London Bridge to Brighton line later that night. The service most closely linked to her death was the 9:33 p.m. train from London Bridge travelling south through Croydon and toward Red Hill. When Mary's body was found, she had no railway ticket. That absence became an early focus for police and press explanations. Witnesses later described a woman matching Mary in a first-class compartment. For a working woman, that was unusual and suggested travel with a wealthier companion. The first-class setting also meant fewer passengers nearby. In 1905, many trains used non-corridor compartments, limiting access to help between stations. Merstham Tunnel lies between Purley and Red Hill in Surrey. It was inside this long, brick-lined tunnel that Mary's body was found. At about 10:55 p.m., Sub-Inspector William Peacock led track walkers into the tunnel to inspect the line after trains had passed. Roughly 400 yards inside the tunnel entrance, Peacock found a woman's body lying near the running rail, still warm, suggesting death was very recent. The body was transported to the Feathers Hotel in Merstham, which served as a temporary mortuary and later hosted key inquest proceedings. Doctors T.H. Wilkins and Holyrood examined Mary's body. Injuries were catastrophic, including a crushed skull, a severed left leg, and extensive fractures. Soot marks on the tunnel wall were interpreted as showing she left a moving train at speed, struck the brickwork, and fell beneath the wheels. Police initially treated the death as likely suicide. The missing ticket was cited as supporting an impulsive act, though later evidence challenged that view. A crucial detail emerged: a white silk scarf, first reported as a motor veil, was found tightly jammed into Mary's mouth and throat. Dr. Holyrood testified the scarf had been folded and inserted with significant force. He said it was impossible to have been swallowed during the fall. The same evidence was also presented as making self-insertion unlikely, because the scarf was lodged so tightly a deliberate gag was suspected. Doctors also recorded bruising on Mary's arms and wrists. This was described as consistent with a struggle or with being firmly gripped. As details of the scarf became public in late September, newspapers reported a shift from suicide theories towards possible homicide inside the train. Mary's purse was not found. Her employer said she had recently been paid, so police also considered whether robbery played a part. Even so, reports noted the violence implied by ejection from a moving train. Investigators could not determine whether theft was the motive or a cover. At the inquest, a guard from the 9:33 train described seeing a couple in a first-class compartment during stops at East Croydon and South Croydon. The guard said that at South Croydon the woman looked distressed. By Red Hill, after the tunnel, the compartment was empty, but the door was shut. A signalman at Purley Oaks gave another account. As a lighted first-class carriage passed, he saw what looked like a struggle inside. The same witness described a man forcing a woman back into her seat. This testimony supported the possibility of coercion in the compartment. The inquest was conducted by Coroner Henry Robert Oswald at the Feathers Hotel, with repeated focus on whether Mary travelled alone or with a companion.
Despite the scarf evidence and eyewitness accounts, the jury said it could not be proved as murder. The verdict remained open, fell, or was pushed.
Early reporting said Surrey Constabulary, led by Superintendent Pierpoint, prioritised suicide. Later commentary criticised the investigation for not pressing hard enough on key timings. The press drove a search for a male companion, sometimes called the Merstham Tunnel Mystery Man, based on the first-class sightings and missing ticket. Ticket collector Charles Yelling also reported seeing a woman resembling Mary with a man described as thin, moustached and wearing a bowler hat. Mary's colleague Emma Hone was interviewed in newspapers and suggested Mary had spoken of a man she was walking out with, though she kept his identity secret. In contrast, family testimony maintained Mary had no serious suitors and lived quietly. The difference between these accounts fueled suspicion and speculation. Mary's brother, Robert Henry Money, testified that she had no followers and never went out with men. Other witnesses described different impressions of her evening. Some reporting described Robert Money's behaviour at the inquest as strange. When shown Mary's clothing for identification, he was said to show no emotion. Newspapers reported Robert's alibi was that he was at home in Kingston with his wife. Police were said to have verified this only superficially. Editorial criticism, including in Truth magazine, argued investigators should have pressed for exact times and fuller corroboration. No charge was brought against Robert in 1905. The timeline still hinged on missing hours. After 7:20 at Clapham Junction, Mary somehow reached a 9:33 departure from London Bridge, not Victoria. Class mattered on Edwardian railways. A working woman in first class was rare, strengthening the inference she was accompanied and perhaps deliberately isolated. Non-corridor compartments could trap passengers with an attacker. Cases like Merstham contributed to later pressure for corridor trains and emergency communication cords. Investigators could document injuries, wall marks, and the gagging scarf. They could not identify a companion with certainty, nor prove how she left the train. The official outcome remained unresolved. Mary Sophia Money was dead, and the inquest could not decide between accident, suicide, or homicide on the evidence available. In August 1912, a separate tragedy in Eastbourne, Sussex, led police and the public to look again at the Money family history. The perpetrator was living under the alias Robert Hicks Murray. After the events, police identified him as Robert Henry Money, Mary's brother. Reports said he shot his wife, Edith, and their 2 children, and attempted to kill his sister-in-law, Florence Paler, who was also described as his mistress. He then set the house on fire and committed suicide. The Eastbourne Inquest documented a double life, with 2 families maintained under deception. Because Robert Money was later proven capable of lethal family violence in 1912, later writers treated the 1905 tunnel death as potentially connected. A retrospective theory suggested Mary may have discovered Robert's illicit lifestyle or faced an advance from him, giving a possible motive for silencing her. No court ever convicted anyone for Mary Money's death. The case against any suspect, including Robert, remained circumstantial and contested. The most concrete facts remain the same: a first-class compartment, witness reports of distress, the missing ticket and purse, and the scarf forced into her throat. Merstham Tunnel kept its secret. The missing hours, the unexplained route from Clapham toward London Bridge, and the absent purse were never resolved. Mary Sophia Money's death entered history as the Merstham Tunnel mystery, a documented tragedy with an open verdict, and a later family catastrophe in 1912. Thanks for watching. If you'd like more documentaries like this, consider subscribing, and feel free to leave a comment below.